Welcome to the delightful adventures of Peter Rabbit and Benjamin Bunny by Beatrix Potter. Click on either of the blue arrows until you come to your name. Once you've found your name, click on the sign with the green arrow. If your name isn't here, go to the Parent menu, then you can type your name. We're off to the marvelous country world of Peter Rabbit. If you would like to hear about the adventures of Peter Rabbit, click on Peter and you can read his story. If you'd like to hear about Peter's cousin, Benjamin Bunny, click on Benjamin and you can read his story. You may click on Mr. McGregor's garden if you want to go there to play. To go into the woods, click on the woods. If you decide at any time that you don't want to go on with your adventure, you may leave by clicking the sign which says, The End. We're going to the edge of the woods. Begin the game by clicking the star. Click. Splendid! Marvelous! You finished that one in no time. You can print the picture if you'd like. Simply click the printer.
The top berries are the best.
Old Mr. Pricklepin has never a cushion to stick his pins in. His nose is black and his beard is grey, and he lives in an ash stump over the way. Lane. Mr. McGregor's garden. Hitty-pitty within the wall, hitty-pitty without the wall. If you touch hitty-pitty, hitty-pitty will bite you. Answer: a nettle.
This is the McGregor garden, you know.
Fields, road,
Click the puzzle piece. Very good. That's right. Very good. There it is. To begin, you must choose the number of nuts you want to play with. Click on a nut pile to make your selection. Try to catch all 20 nuts. You've caught a lot of nuts.
lane, wall, root, fir tree,
going to the edge of the woods. Follow me. We're going into Peter's woods. Let's go and see Peter Rabbit, shall we?
Poor Peter. I like bread and milk and blackberries. So do I. My children will be home soon. What shall I prepare for them? They love cakes for tea. Let me see now. Little cakes are made with butter. Here's the butter. Then I'll add the sugar. Now I need 2 eggs. I must be careful not to put in any eggshell. Now to measure the flour. I have to add the flour a little at a time. I shall hurry them into the oven so they'll be ready to eat soon. By clicking on the printer, you can print out the recipe. You can try another recipe by clicking on the cookbook. My children will be home. Currant buns would be splendid. I'll have to start with flour. The flour goes in first. It's important to sift the flour. Now I'll need butter. Here's the butter. Now for the currants. There are the currants. Nice, plump currants. Now I'll need an egg. Here's an egg. I must be careful not to put in any eggshell. Finally, I'll need some milk. I must add the milk slowly. They'll come out of the oven looking like this. My children will be home. They so like icing on their cake. I'll need some sugar. I need to sift the sugar into a bowl to get out all the lumps. Now I'll need a lemon. I must squeeze a little lemon juice into the bowl. Now I'll need some cream cheese. Here it is, cream cheese. I'll mix it all until it's smooth and creamy. Now I can ice my cake. My children will be home soon. What shall I? Lemonade is just the thing. You can't make lemonade without lemons. I'll have to start with lemons. There are my lemons. I'll have to squeeze the lemons well. You can't make lemonade without sugar. I need some sugar. I'll just make the lemon juice a bit sweeter with the sugar. I need hot water to make lemonade. The kettle's boiling. I'll just melt the sugar with the hot water. I'll wait for it to cool and then serve it with ice. That will be refreshing. My children will be... Oh, yes, blackberry milkshakes would be perfect. To make blackberry milkshakes, first I'll need some fresh blackberries. Nice, juicy blackberries. I'll need some sugar. Now, what did I do with the milk? That goes in with the blackberries. Last but not least, the ice cream. Now, where did I put the ice cream? Now to pour it into a very large glass. This is going to be delicious. You can try another recipe by clicking on the cookbook. My children will be home soon. What?
Let's go and see Peter Rabbit, shall we?
Apply Dapply, a little brown mouse, goes to the cupboard in somebody's house. In somebody's cupboard there's everything nice. Cake, cheese, jam, biscuits, all charming for mice. Apply Dapply has little sharp eyes, and Apply Dapply is so fond of pies. Herbs. Basket. Now who is this knocking at Cottontail's door? Tap tap it, she's heard it before. And when she peeps out, there is nobody there, but a present of carrots put down on the stair. Hark, I hear it again. Tap, tap, tap it, tap, tap it. Why, I really believe it's a little black rabbit. Umbrella. Coat. There once was an amiable guinea pig who brushed back his hair like a periwig. He wore a sweet tie, as blue as the sky, and his whiskers and buttons were very big. Bedtime.
Splendid. There's plenty to do in Mr. McGregor's vegetable patch.
Lettuces.
I'll find you, you wee rascal.
Radishes.
Radishes, my favourite. Oh, very good indeed. I am really fond of radishes. I do love radishes. I am really fond of radishes.
To begin, you must select the number of cabbages you wish to play with. The fewer cabbages you play with, the easier the game. You've decided to try it with 10. See if you can find 5 pairs. Click another cabbage. Let's try again. Let's click another cabbage, shall we? Those two are a perfect pair. Well done! You found a match. Give it another go. Splendid! Those two are the same. Those two are a perfect pair. Well done! You've matched them all. You can return to Mr. McGregor's vegetable garden by clicking the sign with the red arrow.
Cabbages. Wheelbarrow. Potatoes. Ladybird, ladybird, fly away home. Your house is on fire and your children all gone. All except one, and her name is Anne. And she has crept under the pudding pan. Gate. We have a little garden, a garden of our own. And every day we water there the seeds that we have sown. We love our little garden and tend it with such care. You will not find a faded leaf or blighted blossom there. Greenhouse. Bushes. Wall. Water can. Corner. Babbit Booster Bumblebee, fill up your honey bags, bring them to me. humming and sighing with lazy wing. Where are you flying? What song do you sing? Who'll buy my honey pots? Buy them, who'll buy? Sweet heather honey, come weigh them and try. Honey bag, honey pot, home came she. Nobody buys from a big bumblebee. Diggory, diggory, delve a little old man in black velvet. He digs and he delves. You can see for yourselves. The mounds dug by Diggory Delvet. Basket. Wall.
Let me see now. Which of my vegetables should I plant today? Wonderful. I love planting carrots. I'll have to find a dish or saucer to start with. Here's a dish. Then I'll need some small pebbles. Those look like the right kind of pebbles. Now I'll need a carrot top. I'll put the carrot top in the middle of the dish. The pebbles will help hold it in place. The leaves of the carrot will grow if I keep watering it. A click of the printer will print this gardening tip. A click of the seed pack gives another tip for the garden. Let me see now. Which of my vegetable radishes? I'll be planting them just in time too. I'm running a bit low on radishes. I'll start with some earth to plant the seeds in. That looks right. Then I'll need some radish seeds. I'll plant the seeds in a long row. I'll need a stick to use as a marker. I'll mark the place where I've planted my radishes. And now I'll need to give it a drop of water. Plants need water. I do love my radishes. And so does that naughty wee rabbit. Let me see now. I'll be planting a few peas then. I'll have to find a jar to start with. That's a good jar. Then I'll need some blotting paper. That's the right sort of paper. Now I'll need the peas. I'll put a few peas between the paper and the side of the jar. And now I'll need to give it a drop of water. I'll pour a little water into the jar and let the paper soak it up. I'll keep my eye on the peas till they sprout. Then I'll be able to plant them in the garden. Let me see now. Potatoes. Now, there's a vegetable if ever there was one. I'll need a flower pot to start with. A good big flower pot. Just the thing. Now I'll be needing some soil. Here's some earth. Now I've got to find a potato which has sprouted. Now, I'll put the potato in the hole and cover it with soil. I'll give it a wee pat. And now I'll need to give it a drop of water. I'll have to give it another drop now and then, so it doesn't dry out. I'll give them a chance to grow. Then it's potato time. Let me see now. I shall be planting flowers then. Mrs. McGregor will be happy to hear it. I'll need a flower pot to start with. A good big flower pot. Just the thing. Now I'll be needing some soil. Here's some earth. I can't do without the flower seeds. The seeds go into the holes and I'll cover them up with some earth. And now I'll need to give it a drop of water. The seeds will need a drop of water now and again to save them from drying out. They'll be as grand as these once they've grown. Let me see now.
Splendid. There's...
Bushes.
My aunt will like these onions.
Wall. Beans. Lettuces.
To begin, you'll need to pick the number of onions you'd like to play with. 20 onions, good luck! You've caught a lot of onions. To return to Mr. McGregor's garden, just click the sign with the red arrow. Off to the tool shed, are we?
I'll find you, you wee rascal. Come and show yourself, you wee beastie. I'll find you, you wee rascal.
the number of flower pots you want to play with. The game is more difficult with more pots. 10 pots it will be. See if you can find 5 pairs. Splendid! Those two are the same. These two are not the same. Try another two. Well done! You found a match. Those don't match. Splendid! Those two are the same. Those two are a perfect pair. That was good work. If you'd like to return to Mr. McGregor's tool shed, click the sign with the red arrow.
Plants. Window. 3 blind mice. 3 blind mice. See how they run. They all run after the farmer's wife. And she cut off their tails with a carving knife. Did you ever see such a thing in your life? As 3 blind mice. Hoe, sieve. Ride a cock horse to Banbury Cross, to see a fine lady upon a white horse, rings on her fingers and bells on her toes, and she shall have music wherever she goes. Wheelbarrow.
If you would like to hear about the adventures of Peter Rabbit, click on Peter and you can read his story.
The Tale of Peter Rabbit. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. Flopsy, one of Peter Rabbit's 3 sisters. Flowerpot. Mopsy, one of Peter Rabbit's 3 sisters. Cottontail, one of Peter Rabbit's 3 sisters. Peter Rabbit, a mischievous rabbit who steals Mr. McGregor's vegetables.
If you'd like to return to the story, click your bookmark.
Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank, underneath the root of a very big fir tree. Mother, a female parent. Sandbank, a bank of sloping sandy earth. Underneath, under or below something else. Root, the part of the plant that grows underground. Fir tree, an evergreen tree with needle-like leaves and cones. They lived with their mother. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields or down the lane. But don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. My dears. A term of affection. Mrs. Rabbit, Peter Rabbit's mother, and Benjamin Bunny's aunt. Morning. The first part of the day when you wake up after the night. Field. An open space, fenced or walled, sometimes used for crops or grazing animals. Lane. A narrow path or road, often in the country. Mr. McGregor's garden. The garden where Peter Rabbit goes to steal vegetables. Now, your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Father. Male parent. Accident. Something bad which happens unexpectedly or by chance. Pie. Baked meat or fruit covered by a pastry lid. Mrs. McGregor. Mr. McGregor's wife, who put Peter Rabbit's father in a pie. Your father. Now run along and don't get into mischief. I am going out. Along. From one end to the other. Run along. Off you go. Mischief. Naughtiness. Misbehaviour. Now run along. Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Mrs. Rabbit, Peter Rabbit's mother, and Benjamin Bunny's aunt. Basket. A woven bag or container with a handle used to carry things. Umbrella. A folding device used to keep water from falling on you when it is raining. Wood. An area where a lot of trees and other plants grow together. Baker. Someone who makes bread and cakes for people to buy. Loaf of brown bread. Bread made with brown or whole wheat flour in the shape of the mould it was baked in. Currant buns. Sweet rolls with dried fruit similar to raisins. Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. Bunnies. Young rabbits. Gather. To pick or collect. Blackberries. Wild fruits in the same family as raspberries, which grow on very prickly bushes in woods and hedgerows. Flopsy. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate.
That was easy. That was easy.
Naughty. Badly behaved. Mischievous. Straight away. At once. Mr. McGregor's garden. Squeezed. Pressed himself. Gate. A kind of door in a wall or fence. But Peter... First he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. Lettuces. A leafy plant eaten raw in salads. French beans. A kind of bean of which you may eat the whole pod. Radishes. Small red vegetables which grow underground and have a crunchy, peppery taste. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley.
Ooh, my tummy!
Feeling. Understanding something inside yourself. Sick. Feeling ill. Nauseated. Parsley. A garden herb with finely divided leaves used to season or garnish food. And then, but round the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor?
You rascal!
Round the end, around the corner. Cucumber frame. A wooden and glass box in which cucumber plants are grown to protect them from the cold and frost. Mr. McGregor. A gardener who does not like rabbits eating his vegetables. Mother. But round the end of a Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Knees. The bony part or joint in the middle of your leg where it bends. Planting out. Spacing out young plants which have reached seedling stage. Young cabbages. Cabbage plants which are very small and have just begun to grow. Seedlings. Jump. To move up or spring suddenly off the ground. Waving a rake. To shake an instrument or tool used for gardening. Thief. Someone who takes things which belong to someone else. Mr. McGregor was on his hands and Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate.
Help! I can't find the gate!
Dreadfully, very, extremely. Frightened, afraid. Garden. A piece of ground used for growing flowers and vegetables. Gate. A kind of door in a wall. Peter. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. Lost. Not knowing where you are. Among. In the middle of. Amongst. In the midst of. Potatoes. Large vegetables which grow under the ground. He lost. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have got away altogether. If he had not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. Unfortunately. Unluckily. Gooseberry net. A net used to cover gooseberry bushes to keep birds from stealing the fruit. Jacket. A short coat with long sleeves. Brass buttons. A round fastener made of metal used to hold your clothes around you. If he had not unfortunately run into a good...
Oh, help! I'm stuck!
Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows.
It's no use. I can't get out.
Up for lost. Given up on something or someone. Shed. To let tears fall in drops or flow. Sobs. Loud cries. Weeping. Overheard. Accidentally listened to someone else's conversation. Sparrows. Small brown perky birds often found in gardens and parks. Peter gave himself, who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself.
Don't give up, Peter!
Mrs. McGregor will put me in a pie.
Excitement. Feeling thrilled, full of emotion. Implored, begged, pleaded. Exert. Try very hard. Who flew... Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop upon the top of Peter, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him.
Ha! I've got you now, you wee pest.
Sieve. A container with holes in it, used to sift stones and sticks from soil. Intended. Meant to make happen. Pop upon. To catch something by placing something quickly over it. Wriggled. Twisted and turned like a worm. Just in time. Before it is too late, at the last moment. And rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it.
Ooh, it's full of water.
Tool shed. A small building that is used to keep tools in. Jump. To move up or spring suddenly off the ground. Can. A container made of metal for holding liquids. And Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot.
Come and show yourself, you wee beastie. I know fine well you're in here. Come and show yourself, you wee beastie. I know fine well you're in here.
Underneath. Under or below something else. Flower pot. A clay or terracotta container in which flowers grow. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each.
I'll find you, you wee rascal.
Carefully, safely, with caution. He began. Presently Peter sneezed. Ka-tissue! Mr. McGregor was after him in no time.
Ha! There he is.
Presently, after a while. Sneezed. A sudden rush of air coming from your nose. Ka-tissue! A funny sound made when you sneeze. Presently, and tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants.
That was dreadfully close.
Upon. On or on top of something. Jump. To move, upsetting 3 plants. Knocking over 3 plants. And the window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter. He went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright, and he had not the least idea which way to go.
Oh dear, I'm quite lost.
Rest. To relax and take a break from doing something. Out of breath. Puffing and panting as if you have just been running. Trembling with fright. Shaking and shivering because you were afraid. Not the least idea. Not knowing. Peter. Also, he was very damp with sitting in that can.
And I'm all wet.
Damp. A little wet. Moist. Also, after a time he began to wander about, going lippity-lippity, not very fast, and looking all round.
I wish I could find the way home.
Wander. To move in no particular direction, aimlessly. Lippity. A word invented by Beatrix Potter to describe the sound of an animal walking slowly and unevenly. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath.
It's locked.
Locked, closed tightly with a key. Squeezed, pressed himself. Underneath, under or below something else. He found an old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peas. A very small, round green vegetable which grows in a pod on a vine-like plant. Beans. Small round vegetables which grow in a row inside a long pod or case. Bean plants will grow up a frame which supports the heavy pods. Wood. An area where a lot of trees and other plants grow together. An old Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry.
Excuse me, please. Could you direct me to the gate?
Shook. Moving your head from side to side to mean no. Peter. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled.
Oh dear, I've already been this way.
Straight across. Opposite. Garden. Peter puzzled. Confused. Then presently he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. Pond. A pool of water. Water cans. Containers with spouts which are filled with water to water the plants. Presently, a white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Goldfish. An orange or golden-coloured fish of the carp family, often kept in ponds. Twitched. Made a quick movement with a part of the body. Rabbits twitch their noses. A white... Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny.
Cousin Benjamin says they're dangerous.
Cousin, your aunt or uncle's child. Benjamin Bunny, Peter Rabbit's cousin. Peter... He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scritch, scratch, scratch, scritch.
Rabbits! They've been digging in my garden and stealing my vegetables.
Noises. Sounds, often loud or frightening. Hoe. A garden tool with a long handle and small sharp head used for digging up weeds. Scritch. A word invented by Beatrix Potter to describe the scraping sound made by a hoe being used. Scratch. A scraping sound. Scritch. He went. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. Upon. On or on top of something. Wheelbarrow. A small cart with handles and one wheel in the front which you push. It is used to move heavy things in the garden. Peeped over. Looked quickly over. Peter. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate.
There it is. There's the gate.
Rabbits! They've been digging in my garden and stealing my vegetables.
Hoe. A garden tool. Onions. Round white vegetables with a strong taste and smell, which may make tears come to your eyes after eating or smelling them. The first. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go along a straight walk behind some blackcurrant bushes. Quietly, making very little sound. A long, straight walk, a narrow, straight path. Blackcurrant bushes. Low garden plants on which blackcurrants grow. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden.
Aha! I got you now.
Slipped. Fallen. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Scarecrow. A dummy, which looks like a real person, dressed in old clothes and put in a field or vegetable patch to scare birds away. Frighten. To make someone afraid. Blackbirds. European songbirds, often seen in gardens. The male birds are black in colour with a yellow beak. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes.
Peter's late for supper. What's wrong with Peter?
Flopped. Collapsed. Fallen down. Upon. On or on top of something. Rabbit hole. Underground burrow where rabbits live. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight.
Peter, what have you done with your clothes?
It looks as if he's lost them again, Mother.
Busy. Having many things to do. Wondered. Asked questions of oneself. Lost. Fortnight. 2 weeks. His mother I am sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening.
My tummy aches.
You know the old woman who lived in a shoe and had so many children she didn't know what to do? I think if she lived in a little shoe house, that little old woman was surely a mouse. Evening. The end of the day. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, and she gave a dose of it to Peter.
Straight off to bed for you, Peter, and a good dose of medicine.
Chamomile tea, a hot drink made from the herb chamomile. Dose, the amount, usually of medicine, to be taken. 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime. Tablespoonful, a measurement. Bedtime, a time to go to bed at night. But Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper.
Poor Peter. I like bread and milk and blackberries. So do I.
Blackberries. Wild fruits in the same family as raspberries, which grow on very prickly bushes in woods and hedgerows. Supper. The meal eaten in the evening. The end.
Poor Peter.
The end. The Tale of Benjamin Bunny. One morning, a little rabbit sat on a bank. He pricked his ears and listened to the trit-trot of a pony.
Very well then, we'll read you the story.
A gig was coming. One morning, a little rabbit sat on a bank.
I believe I can hear a pony.
To go on to the next page, click the sign with the green arrow.
Bank. The ground along the edge of a river or road, often steeply sloping. Pricked his ears. Raised and turned his ears towards a sound. Trit-trot. The sound of a horse's hooves when it is trotting. A gig was coming along the road. It was driven by Mr. McGregor, and beside him sat Mrs. McGregor in her best bonnet. Blackberries. Gig. An old-fashioned two-wheeled horse-drawn carriage. Along. From one end to the other. Bonnet. A hat that ties under the chin with ribbons, which used to be worn by women when they dressed up. As soon as they had passed, little Benjamin Bunny slid down into the road and set off with a hop, skip and a jump.
I shall call upon my cousins.
Slid. Moved over something quickly and smoothly. Hop. To jump, especially on one foot. Skip. A light jumping movement. Jump. To move up or spring suddenly off the ground. As soon as they... To call upon his relations, who lived in the wood at the back of Mr. McGregor's garden. Call upon. To visit. Relations. Members of your family, such as an aunt, cousin or uncle. Relative. To call up. That wood was full of rabbit holes, and in the neatest, sandiest hole of all lived Benjamin's aunt and his cousins, Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail and Peter.
Yes, Mother. I hope your paws are clean, my dears. Yes, Mother. Yes, Mother.
Sandiest, with the most sand. Old Mrs. Rabbit was a widow. She earned her living by knitting rabbit wool mittens and muffatees. I once bought a pair at a bazaar.
We shall need some more lavender soon. Mother, we would like some tea.
Widow, a woman whose husband has died. Mittens, gloves without separate fingers. Muffatees, fur or knitted cuffs used to keep your hands warm. Bazaar, a marketplace with lots of small stalls where people sell different things. A sale of arts and crafts. She also sold herbs and rosemary tea and rabbit tobacco, which is what we call lavender.
I wonder where Peter is.
Herbs, plants which you add to food to give it extra taste. Rosemary tea, a type of tea that is made from the herb called rosemary. Rabbit tobacco, another name for the herb lavender. Lavender, a sweet-smelling bush with pale purple flowers in summer. Little Benjamin did not very much want to see his aunt. He came round the back of the fir tree and nearly tumbled upon the top of his cousin Peter. Tumbled upon, fallen on top of. Cousin, your aunt or uncle's child. Peter Rabbit, a mischief. He came round the back of the fir tree and nearly tumbled upon the top of his cousin Peter. Peter was sitting by himself. He looked poorly and was dressed in a red cotton pocket handkerchief.
What's wrong with you, Peter?
Red cotton pocket handkerchief. A piece of cloth which is kept in the pocket and can be used to blow your nose, made of red cotton fabric. Peter was sitting. Peter, said little Benjamin in a whisper, who has got your clothes? Whisper, a very quiet voice. Peter replied, the scarecrow in Mr. McGregor's garden, and described how he'd been chased about the garden and had dropped his shoes and coat.
Mr. McGregor ran after me with the rake and I lost my jacket and shoes.
Replied, answered. Describe. To say what something or someone is like. Dropped. Allowed to fall to the ground. Let go. Coat. A garment with long sleeves. A jacket. Little Benjamin sat down beside his cousin and assured him that Mr. McGregor had gone out in a gig and Mrs. McGregor also. Assured, certain of something. And certainly for the day, because she was wearing her best bonnet, Peter said he hoped that it would rain.
Mrs. McGregor had on her best hat. I hope it rains then.
At this point, old Mrs. Rabbit's voice was heard inside the rabbit hole, calling, "Cottontail, Cottontail, fetch some more chamomile." Fetch. Go for something. Retrieve. Chamomile. An herb often used to make medicine. At this, Peter said he thought he might feel better if he went for a walk.
Come on then, Peter.
They went away hand in hand and got upon the flat top of the wall at the bottom of the wood. From here they looked down into Mr. McGregor's garden. Hand in hand. To be holding someone's hand. Flat top. A smooth, level surface. Peter's coat and shoes were plainly to be seen upon the scarecrow, topped with an old tam-o'-shanter of Mr. McGregor's.
Look at that, Peter.
Plainly, simply, clearly. Tam-o'-shanter. A Scottish hat for men. Little Benjamin said, "It spoils people's clothes to squeeze under a gate. The proper way to get in is to climb down a pear tree." Spoils, damages, ruins. Proper, correct, right. Pear tree. A tree upon which pears grow. Peter fell down head first, but it was of no consequence, as the bed below was newly raked and quite soft.
Take care, Peter.
Of no consequence. Not important. Raked. Cleared of leaves and twigs and smoothed with a rake. Peter fell down head. It had been sown with lettuces. They left a great many odd little footmarks all over the bed, especially little Benjamin, who was wearing clogs. Sown. Planted with seeds. Lettuces. A leaf. Footmarks. Footprints. Marks in the ground where someone has walked. Clogs. Heavy wooden-soled shoes worn in the country to protect your feet from mud and water. Little Benjamin said that the first thing to be done was to get back Peter's clothes in order that they might be able to use the pocket handkerchief.
We'll need the handkerchief, Peter.
Pocket handkerchief. A piece of cloth which is kept in the pocket and can be used to blow your nose. They took them off the scarecrow. There had been rain during the night. There was water in the shoes, and the coat was somewhat shrunk. Shrunk. To have become smaller. Benjamin tried on the tam-o'-shanter, but it was too big for him.
This hat's too loose for me.
Then he suggested that they should fill the pocket handkerchief with onions as a little present for his aunt.
My aunt will like these onions.
Present. Something you give to someone. A gift. Then he suggested. Peter did not seem to be enjoying himself. He kept hearing noises. Benjamin, on the contrary, was perfectly at home and ate a lettuce leaf. Onions. On the contrary, the opposite of. Lettuce leaf. Part of a leafy plant used in salads. He said that he was in the habit of coming to the garden with his father to get lettuces for their Sunday dinner.
Father likes this kind the best.
In the habit. Doing often. A routine. The name of little Benjamin's papa was old Mr. Benjamin Bunny. The lettuces certainly were very fine. Old Mr. Benjamin Bunny, little Benjamin Bunny's father, and Peter Rabbit's uncle. Peter did not eat anything. He said he should like to go home. Presently he dropped half the onions. Dropped. Half. One of 2 equal parts of a whole thing. Little Benjamin said that it was not possible to get back up the pear tree with a load of vegetables.
Come along, Peter, we'll find the gate.
Load. Something heavy to be carried. He led the way boldly towards the other end of the garden. They went along a little walk on planks under a sunny red brick wall.
This way.
Boldly, bravely, without fear. Planks. Long, flat pieces of wood. Boards. The mice sat on their doorsteps cracking cherry stones. They winked at Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin Bunny. Cracking. Breaking open, such as cracking nutshells. Cherry stone. The hard, nut-like pit inside a cherry. Winked. Closed one eye very quickly and opened it again. Presently, Peter let the pocket handkerchief go again.
Oh dear.
They got amongst flower pots and frames and tubs. Peter heard noises worse than ever. His eyes were as big as lollipops.
Do come on, Peter.
Frames. A wooden box and glass box used to grow plants in to protect them from frost. Tubs. Large wooden containers used to hold water. Lollipops. A big round hard candy on a stick. He was a step or two in front of his cousin when he suddenly stopped. This is what those little rabbits saw round that corner.
Oh no!
Round the corner. Around the edge or bend. Little Benjamin took one look, and then, in half a minute less than no time, he hid himself and Peter and the onions underneath a large basket. Half a minute less than no time. A very short time. The cat got up and stretched herself, and came and sniffed at the basket. Perhaps she liked the smell of onions. Stretched, pulled or reached out to make longer. Anyway, she sat down upon the top of the basket. She sat there for 5 hours. I I cannot draw you a picture of Peter and Benjamin underneath the basket, because it was quite dark. And because the smell of onions was fearful, it made Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin cry. The sun got round behind the wood, and it was quite late in the afternoon, but still the cat sat upon the basket. At length there was a pitter-patter, pitter-patter, and some bits of mortar fell from the wall above. Pitter-patter. Sound made by light, quick footsteps. For example, rabbit's paws. Mortar. A mixture of sand, cement and water used to stick bricks together in building. The cat looked up and saw old Mr. Benjamin Bunny prancing along the top of the wall of the upper terrace. Prancing. Jumping about in a playful, lively manner. Along. From one end to the other. Run along. Off you go. Terrace. A raised flat area like a shelf in the ground. The cat looked. He was smoking a pipe of rabbit tobacco and had a little switch in his hand. He was looking for his son. Switch. A long, thin stick. Old Mr. Bunny had no opinion whatever of cats. He took a tremendous jump off the top of the wall onto the top of the cat and cuffed it off the basket. Tremendous. Huge and powerful. Cuffed. Hit with the flat part of your hand. And kicked it into the greenhouse, scratching off a handful of fur. The cat was too much surprised to scratch back. Greenhouse. A building made mostly of glass, in which to grow plants and protect them from the cold. Scratch. A scraping sound. And when old Mr. Bunny had driven the cat into the greenhouse, he locked the door. Locked, closed tightly with a key. Old Mr. Benjamin, then he came back to the basket and took out his son Benjamin by the ears and whipped him with the little switch. Whipped, hit with a switch. Then he took out his nephew Peter. Then he took out the handkerchief of onions and marched out of the garden. Marched, walked firmly, like a soldier. Then, when Mr. McGregor returned, about half an hour later, he observed several things which perplexed him. Perplexed. Confused. When it looked as though some person had been walking all over the garden in a pair of clogs, only the footmarks were too ridiculously little. Pair of clogs. Both the right and left shoe. Clogs. Ridiculously. In a silly way. It looked. Also, he could not understand how the cat could have managed to shut herself up inside the greenhouse, locking the door upon the outside. Managed. Was able. Could. Locking. Closing, for example, a door so it cannot be opened without a key. When Peter got home, his mother forgave him because she was so glad to see that he had found his shoes and coat.
I found my coat and shoes, Mother, and here are some onions for you.
Cottontail and Peter folded up the pocket handkerchief. And old Mrs. Rabbit strung up the onions and hung them from the kitchen ceiling with the bunches of herbs and the rabbit tobacco. Strung up, hung up. And the end.